welcome to my cellar once again. Been an interesting week. We're going to save all that till the end because it may have changed by then. All right, let's see where we will go. All right, the off-brand paladin. Okay, we're going to talk about paladins a little bit, and that's they're interesting. The off-brand paladin that sticks out most for me is the various aspects of Moorcock's Eternal Champion. Very, very good example of someone who behaves as a paladin in the broadest sense. Another good example, Jack Reacher from the novels is the best example of a literary paladin I cite. He has uncompromising principles, but is not a goody-goody. He will take out any number of foes on principle, but he's not on the side of the law, but justice, though arguably natural law versus the law of the land. And then there was a third comment regarding this, that the paladin has to be explained so obtusely in 2023 is symptomatic of the decadence of D&D. Well, I think the word you might have wanted was the decay, because I don't believe decadent. I don't believe D&D's decadence yet, because we never did publish the orgy rules or the sexual disease rule. Anyway, Jack Reacher's a good example of a modern day. Serves Judge Dredd from the British comics. Serves the law. Okay, he serves the law. And the association being that the law is justice, which, as we know, is not necessarily always the case. However, the third comment is, it has to be obtuse today because no matter what you say, somebody's going to be offended. It gets right down to it. In the very beginning, the paladin was based on a Christian do-gooder who went around smiting evil and the forces of the demons and the devils, okay? Very simplistic, something you could get away with back then. That's kind of what they were, okay? However, nowadays, if you make them Christian, then every non-Christian will go, well, why do they have to be? They don't have to be Christian. That is what they were originally modeled on, was that principle, that ideal. I like the Jack Reacher reference, and I do believe that the Moorcock reference is valid also. He has his agenda. I guess you could possibly say that you could look at a paladin as someone has an agenda. Right, wrong, seek truth, whatever their agenda is, if they stick to it, then they would be a paladin in that sense. It all depends on your interpretation, how you read the characters, how you want to play it in your game. All right. All right, this is an interesting comment about what's been going on. We'll have much more of that at the end. Like my friend said yesterday, WotC can put out as many books, modules, and expansions and as much pointless, overpriced merchandise as they like, but ultimately all you need to enjoy the game and make it your own, besides a table, pen, and paper, and some funny-shaped dice, is a basic understanding of the rules in your imagination. My God, Gary Gygax might have written that, because he said that in many, many different words. In many ways, many times in different ways, and words similar to those. That's right. Now, I want to address the movie, okay, that's coming out. The movie. Boycotting the movie, I don't believe is productive. I don't believe it is. Hasbro's already gotten a big chunk of the money up front, and they're going to get a little slice of the pie on the other end. I understand that. However, I think if the movie just does gonzo box office right off the bat, that also says something. I think that says more than some of us not going. I know for sure I'm going to go. I've been waiting for a decent, by decent I mean good actors, high budget. I've been waiting for a decent D&D movie ever since the third of those last three shitty ones. I'm going. I'm, I'm going to support the actors who did it, the filmmakers who, the cameraman who shot it, whatever. I'm going. I want to see a decent D&D movie. And if they did it, fine. Now, is this kerfuffle, as someone said later? What's that going to do to the D&D TV show? Couldn't tell you. I think that's going to be aimed more at the 5e modern younger player, which this doesn't really affect at all. Not yet. Again, we'll go into more of that later. Okay, and by the way, thank you for all the birthday wishes. And this was another one. Happy birthday, Tim. Thank you for. Okay. I'm looking forward to the Curse of the Weaver Queen. I hope this kerfuffle doesn't make any problem for the Weaver Queen Kickstarter. Looks like probably not, and it's due out literally any week. I have nothing to do with that. I don't have my fingers in it. It's being put together in Texas, and I'm still here in Ohio. It shouldn't have any effect whatsoever, and we'll go into why that's probably the case later. I try to keep these topics grouped together. I know in the past I've done them all over the place, but I like to marshal my thoughts on related stuff. Helps me not forget. Helps me to not forget stuff that I wanted to say. Regarding Zorns, pretty sure the monsters in the old schlocky sci-fi film Battle Beyond the Sun was the inspiration for them, as well as the Roper and possibly the Yacht-Yug. And as a follow-up to that, the whole premise of the Zorn is I had no idea beats me, so the answer is correct. It could well be. I didn't watch old sci-fi movies, didn't watch old horror movies. That wasn't my thing when I was growing up. This could very well be. I'm not sure, I'm damn not sure going to watch any of these crappy old sci-fi and horror movies if I got to have commercials. No. Okay, a gaming question for you. This Christmas, my godson got into D&D after my long-distance influencing. He's already getting ready to write his own stuff. I've been trying to give him advice on designing monsters and would appreciate any wisdom you could share as well. Even now, this is something I struggle with. I've always been a big proponent of what I called, I think I wrote an article or I had somebody else write it, on dungeon ecology. If you're populating a dungeon, there's got to be a food source for everything that's in there. They can't just eat each other, or eventually the only one left will be the biggest. If you're going to create a monster, there's a bunch of things you got to take into account. First off, what's it look like? That has to have a big effect on what you decide where it lit on how. Man, I'm sorry. Let me get another drink. Get a dry face here. Terrain. We'll call it terrain. A monster has to be comfortable in one type of terrain. Grasslands, woods, swamps, bogs, fens, in the river, in the ocean, whatever. So, if you're going to create monsters, they should be, they should be plausible in regard to where they are, the location they're in. You don't want desert dwellers in a marsh. You could, but in creating monsters, as opposed to using the God knows how many hundreds out there already available to you, Where do they live? What do they eat? Are they gregarious? Are they loners? Do they only congregate in family units? Are they tribal? Do they travel in packs or herds? Then, if you're dealing with a purely physical thing, okay, what's its natural attributes for attack and defense? If you're going to do into something magic, okay, you should have some idea, at least in the back of your mind, to justify why it has this magical ability or that magical or special ability. Now, if you can satisfy all those, go ahead. Just don't make it too tough to kill. Everything. If you face a party with stuff they can't kill, they're either all going to die or all your players are going to quit. What's the point? So temper your monsters to the level of threat and reward of your design. That's the best advice I can give. If you're going to create a monster, give it a habitat. What biome does it live in? What does it eat? Is it a burrower? Is it a nest builder? Does it like to live in caves, natural caves, dig out its own caves? And they can't be unstoppable. They either have to be, well, every monster should have a weak spot. Every monster should have a weak spot. No matter how infinitesimal the chance that you might actually strike the weak spot, it should have one. Or if it doesn't have a little weak spot in its armor, then it should have a flaw or a weakness in the other sense that susceptible to this, or really dumb and will often do stuff that's not good for itself, or very crafty and hard to trick or fool. Is it a big dumb Saint Bernard, or is it a cave bear? A whole lot of difference there. All right, now this person goes on to, I'm also taking a project, taking my local town and transforming it into a setting. And don't worry, I'll stay out of the steam tunnels. My approach would be to take a map and scrape it back to bare land and then add in core locations. Brilliant. Brilliant. He's from Australia, and he said, if more players in Australia were also to do that, they could start developing their own resource of actual real terrain and real structures, as modern or as old as you care to make them. A tiny primitive village or a bustling small a bustling small village or a incipient town. But it's easy to get maps from your local government, and then just if you've got the skill, scan it and fool with it on your computer. Take all that out and rebuild it. And it also gives you a chance, once you scrub it down, to see why it was built there, whether it's the resources, the location of the water. These things all come into play, and you can see that better when you do that. Scrape all the buildings off. I think it's a neat idea. I think approach it as the terrain. Where would people stop? Where, if there's a river, is it fordable? If it's not fordable, where would somebody build a ferry? And around the ferry, a little town would eventually evolve. Now, I'm saying on this on the presumption that there's a certain similarity between what I'm thinking of in my mind's eye as scrubbing a plat map and what you might be in Australia, because your terrain is considerably different, and there seems to be way more places you can't live than you can. I don't mean that as an insult, just it seems to me. Okay. Your comment about the person willing to spend 1,000 hours working with others to put out a new system doesn't exist. I have good news. Myself and a half a dozen other publishers have joined forces to do just that. We've already about 20,000 words into it, with most of the rules fleshed out. Project Phoenix. The goal is to do just that, create an open system that anyone can use for free. Rules for free. As you've witnessed yourself over the past 4.5 decades, never underestimate the work ethic of gamers when it comes to making games. Heck, I even put in about 100 hours retyping all the monsters. Oh, yeah. The guy that made the really great book of all the monsters from Dragon Magazine that I spoke about last week. Well, I'm not knocking Project Phoenix. I'm casting doubt on a couple of the other game companies. Hey, jump on board with us, and we'll do this and we'll do that. The only time I would jump on board with anything like that is if it's owned by a nonprofit. And therefore, the nonprofit can protect, or what's to protect, can propagate and promulgate. I have nothing against the companies that have offered to do that. I have nothing against any members of the people that have looked to make, confederations to address this. Nothing whatsoever. My thing is, I don't think anybody should own it. I think if you want to say this is going to be public domain, then you release it like that and you put it. I think it should already be in the custody of a nonprofit. My opinion. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes. Medusa and the mirror illusion question. If the Medusa believed it to be an actual mirror, I would have the Medusa in a catatonic state for 1 to D4 rounds. I'm not saying the illusion would reflect the gaze. If it did, the Medusa could be stone. My take on this, my interpretation is, the Medusa is demigod-like in status, in mythology, etc. A minor demigod, perhaps, but a demigod. The eyes have such amazing powers to be able to do what they can do, as they would see through any illusion as what it was. They're so powerful, so magically endowed, they would see through any artifice or illusion. That's my world. Your mileage may vary, but that was what I based my question on, or my answer on. For the guy that I did all the recordings with, it was great fun getting him done. Yes, it was. We had a wonderful time. Now, talking about the artificial intelligence art, I think is frankly cheating and sloppy creation. Any game designer who uses it needs to remove the designer off their business card. Well, I can certainly see where that sentiment would come from. I would just maybe say, instead of removing designer off it, have to put one on in front that says lazy. Okay, now we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Now, as you recall, last time I told you that this is what I know up to this point in time. And I gave you my rehash of it, if you will. Literally within hours, I was wrong on some parts. So this is going to press, so to speak, on Thursday. This is what I have to say about all the crap that's been going with the new OGL. And this is we'll start out with a comment from one of the video watchers. Hasbro, or at least their lawyers, can't be so stupid to think this would fly. My bet is they're hoping to dupe as many small-time indie publishers who didn't read the fine print as they could. If it hadn't leaked, their plan might have worked. All right, let's address the word leak. I have it from pretty reliable sources that what is now being called 1.1 had already been sent out to 3 or 4 of the larger publishers with their, here's how we're going to renew, their renewal licenses or whatever. So I don't know that they were floating a trial balloon. Timing's a little suspect there. I don't believe, if it got leaked, it was by them, is my opinion. Now, this morning, there was a post from an individual named Kyle Brink, who is the executive producer of D&D. In the morning, he came out and said, it didn't mean this, it didn't mean that, and backed up on a bunch of stuff. And I hate to use the word weasel, but I don't know a better on a couple of things. In the afternoon, that was refuted. Now it would appear that, we're sorry, we didn't mean to do that. Would you take a survey that nobody will look at the results of, in an attempt to look like they really give a shit about what we think, when I'm beginning to think they don't. If the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing from morning to afternoon, how can we believe anything that's coming out of there? Now, the latest, if we are to believe it, 5e and back in time, no change, no problems, no hassle. 6th edition and on, the new, I guess they're going to call it 1.2 or 2.0, I don't know. The new one would kick in. Little people, you're not going to have to share your money. We're thinking about ramping down what the big people have to share. We didn't, yabba, yabba. Same old shit. In the afternoon, more of the same, supposedly clarifying. Contradicting some of what came out in the morning. Kind of like a Laurel and Hardy movie. Now, here's a leak. Again, leak. Word to be taken with a grain of salt. It's going to cost $30 a month to play 6th edition. And they want to put in microtransactions. Well, I know what microtransactions are. I play 2 games online, and I spend $5 each month on them. And if I wanted to really go hog wild, I could spend more. There's plenty of ways to spend more real dollars, and I won't. I won't spend real money to get poker chips to play poker with. But that's what you watch. That's what'll happen. I heard that stuff on Warhammer Online, a big nasty axe or something, can go for thousands. Real money. Holy cow. Are you kidding me? Now, I just heard that. I don't know for sure. But, wow. That wouldn't surprise me. Now, I have a rhetorical question. How is it that women named Lorraine end up in charge of game companies or game branches or game divisions, whatever you want to call it, who know absolutely jack shit about the games themselves or the people that play them, their customer base. How in the hell is that? Of course, we had the lovely, she who will not be named, Lorraine, at TSR. Now we have another Lorraine who sees the players as the customer base that is not being, in other words, squeezed for as much as they could be squeezed for. Therefore, we'll squeeze them harder. I don't know what it is that how women named Lorraine end up in these positions. I'd have to say that this current one, this new one, doesn't know jack shit about the game and the culture that it is imbued, or the players who constitute that culture. They certainly better learn to be more circumspect in their quotes. They really, really, really should. So to sum it all up, nobody really knows what the hell is going on right now. By the time you see this Saturday or later, it may have been refuted and refuted again and thrice refuted by the time you see this. Who knows? I do know this. Don't be a sucker and fill out their survey, because they've already said that they won't pay any attention to it. But it makes them look like they care. Oh, please tell us what you want. And then they totally ignore it. That's, unfortunately, big corporation business practices. Maximize the profit, maximize the profit. But what they're going to have to learn, if they want more money out of this herd of sheep, they're going to have to quit sharing them as regularly as they do for as much as they do, or their sheep will just walk over the hill and go find another pasture to graze in. And on that note, I'll wish you a Dodata Gobi. Oh yeah, the other button. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.